For 3 months, Daniel Bennett and his service dog Atlas lived out of a 1998 Ford Explorer in the parking lot behind Miller's Grocery. The townspeople of Cedar Ridge knew them. Some left spare change on the windshield, others pretended not to see. But when an elderly woman collapsed in the pouring rain outside the grocery store one November evening, Daniel made a choice that would cost him everything he had left. What he didn't know was that the woman he stopped to help had the power to change his life completely. And what happened next proved that sometimes the poorest person in town can be the richest in ways that matter most. The rain came down cold that November evening, the kind that soaks through layers and settles into bones. Daniel Bennett sat in the driver's seat of his Explorer, Atlas pressed against his leg, watching the drops hammer the windshield. The dog's warm weight was familiar comfort. $27.34. He'd counted it 3 times. The eviction notice from the motel sat crumpled in the cup holder. 3 days overdue, final warning. He'd lost that battle yesterday when the manager changed the locks. The Explorer was all he had now. The tank showed a quarter full, maybe enough for a week if he didn't drive much. Maybe. Atlas shifted, his brown eyes tracking something outside. The German Shepherd had been with Daniel for 2 years now, assigned through the VA after the nightmares got too bad. The dog knew things before Daniel did, knew when the panic was building, when the memories were pressing too close. Daniel opened his wallet again. The 20, the 5, 2 ones, and the loose change. That was groceries for maybe 4 days if he stretched it, or gas to make it to the next town where an old army buddy might have work, or the vet bill he'd been avoiding, the one for Atlas's limp that wasn't getting better. Through the rain-streaked window, he watched people hurry from their cars to the grocery store entrance, collars turned up against the weather. Normal people with normal problems. Warm houses waiting, dinner cooking. His stomach cramped. He'd had coffee this morning. That was it. Atlas whined softly, nosing his hand. The dog knew. "I know, buddy," Daniel murmured. "Tomorrow. We'll figure it out tomorrow." He was reaching for the ignition, thinking about driving somewhere drier to sleep, when the woman fell. She came out of the grocery store, arms loaded with bags, no umbrella. Elderly, maybe 70, her gray hair plastered to her head within seconds. She took 3 steps into the rain, and her foot caught on something. The bags went flying. She went down hard on the wet pavement. Nobody stopped. Cars drove past, windshield wipers beating. A couple hurried by, heads down, protecting their own bags. The woman tried to push herself up, slipped, went down again. Her hand went to her chest. Daniel was out of the Explorer before he decided to move, Atlas at his heels. The rain hit like ice water, soaking his jacket in seconds. "Ma'am?" He knelt beside her, hand hovering, not touching yet. "Military training, assess before acting. Are you hurt?" She looked up at him, eyes wide, frightened. "My heart medication," she gasped. "In the bag, the orange bottle." Daniel's eyes swept the parking lot, groceries everywhere, soaked, scattered, cans rolling. He spotted a white plastic bag caught against a tire 2 cars over. Atlas was already moving, trained to retrieve. The dog grabbed the bag gently and brought it back. Daniel dumped the contents, bread, eggs broken and leaking, and there, the orange prescription bottle. He shook out a pill, helped her get it under her tongue. "Just breathe," he said. "Slow. That's it." 2 minutes, 5. Her breathing steadied. Color came back to her face. "We need to get you out of this rain," Daniel said. "Can you stand?" With his help, she made it up. He guided her toward the store entrance, Atlas circling protectively. She was shaking, soaked through. "My car," she said. "The blue Cadillac." He helped her into the passenger seat, gathered what groceries could be saved. Most were ruined. The bread was soaked, the eggs gone, milk carton punctured. He loaded what remained into her back seat. "You saved my life," she said, voice trembling. "What's your name?" "Daniel Bennett, ma'am. This is Atlas." She reached out, squeezed his hand. Her fingers were cold, fragile. "I'm Eleanor Fairchild. Thank you doesn't seem like enough." "You don't need to thank me. Just get home safe, okay? Get warm." She looked at his soaked jacket, the dog pressed against his leg. Her eyes moved past him to the old Explorer with condensation on all the windows. "Where do you live, Daniel?" He felt his face flush. Around. I'm between places right now. Something shifted in her expression. She opened her purse, pulled out her wallet. Please, let me. No, ma'am. The words came out firmer than he meant them. I didn't help you for money. I helped because you needed help. But I'm fine. He stepped back, whistled for Atlas. You take care of yourself, Mrs. Fairchild. He walked back to the Explorer through the rain, feeling her eyes on him. Inside, he stripped off the soaked jacket, his hands shaking now. Not from cold. Atlas settled against him, wet fur, warm body. Daniel pulled out his wallet. $19.50. The rest, $8 in bills and change, was in the puddle where he'd knelt helping her. He'd seen it wash away while he was gathering her groceries. Hadn't seemed important at the time. Now his hands wouldn't stop shaking. $19.50. That was maybe 3 days of food. Not enough for gas to the next town. Not enough for Atlas's vet bill. Not even enough to buy the medications he was supposed to be taking himself. He'd made his choice. No going back. He turned the key and the engine sputtered. The fuel light glowed orange. Daniel woke to Atlas's insistent nudging. Gray dawn light filtered through fogged windows. His back screamed from sleeping twisted in the driver's seat. The dog needed out. He opened the door to brittle cold. The storm had passed, leaving ice crystals on everything. His breath fogged as Atlas circled the edge of the parking lot, leg lifted. The fuel gauge needle sat on empty. He'd driven 3 blocks last night, looking for somewhere more secluded to park. 3 blocks had been too many. $19.50. Minus the gas station coffee he'd bought at 4 a.m. when the shaking got too bad. Minus the dollar store toothpaste because he couldn't stand his own mouth anymore. $14.27. His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, already knowing. The mechanic. 3 voicemails, 2 texts. Atlas's limp needed looking at. X-rays, maybe surgery. The free clinic could only do so much. Daniel deleted the messages. He walked Atlas behind the grocery store where the dumpsters sat, his shoulders hunched, expecting someone to yell at him, but it was too early. The bread he'd eaten yesterday sat heavy and wrong in his stomach. When had he eaten bread last? The day before? 2 days? The shaking was worse today. Atlas pressed against his leg, doing the thing he was trained to do, grounding. The dog's weight, the solid warmth of him, pulled Daniel back from the edge where his thoughts were spinning. I'm okay, Daniel lied. We're okay. They weren't okay. He'd given away their chance to make it to the next town, given away the possibility of work, of sleeping somewhere that wasn't this parking lot, given it away for a stranger who'd probably forgotten him the moment she got home to her warm house. No, that wasn't fair. She'd needed help. He'd helped. That's what you did. But the thought wouldn't leave. He'd chosen her over Atlas, over himself, and now they were both going to suffer for it. The grocery store opened at 7. Daniel waited until 1:15, then went inside. The manager knew him, that peculiar mix of pity and irritation in his eyes. Job openings? Daniel asked. Nothing right now. Sorry, Bennett. He bought a can of soup with $2. Ate it cold in the parking lot, sharing half with Atlas. The dog deserved better, deserved proper food, the kind that came in bags and kept him healthy. Not canned soup shared from a bent spoon. By noon, the truck he'd been hoping to see pulled into the lot. Jimmy Walters, a guy he'd served with. Sometimes Jimmy had day labor work, off-the-book stuff. Cash, same day. Hey, Bennett. Jimmy's eyes slid over the Explorer, the sleeping bag visible in the back. Rough patch? Could use work if you got it. Not today, man. Sorry. Maybe next week? Next week they'd be starving. By evening, Daniel had walked Atlas 4 miles around town, checking every place that might need help. Nothing. The library let him sit in the warm for an hour, but his eyes wouldn't focus on the job listings blurring on the computer screen. His hands were shaking again. Not anxiety this time. Hunger. Real, physical hunger that made his vision swim. He bought a gas station hot dog for $1.50, gave half to Atlas, watched the dog swallow it in 2 bites, then look up expectantly for more. That's it, buddy. That's all we got. That night, curled in the Explorer with the last of the fuel running the heater for 20 precious minutes, Daniel did something he hadn't done since Afghanistan. He cried, not the loud kind, the silent kind that shakes your chest and makes your jaw ache. Atlas licked his face, whining. "I know what I did," Daniel whispered into the dog's fur. "I'd do it again. She needed help, but I don't know how we're going to make it, boy. I really don't." The heater clicked off. The cold crept in. Tomorrow he'd have to choose between food and gas, between eating and finding work, between keeping Atlas healthy and keeping himself alive. He'd made the choice he could live with, but he wasn't sure he could survive it. Outside, Cedar Ridge slept in its warm houses behind locked doors and comfortable beds. And Daniel Bennett held his service dog and tried to remember why he'd fought so hard to come home from war, only to lose everything anyway. But even as the thought formed, he knew the answer. He could see it in the way Atlas trusted him, pressed against him, shared his warmth. Some things mattered more than comfort, more than safety. He'd saved that woman because that's who he was, and if being that person meant sleeping in a car, then he'd sleep in a car. But he wouldn't change, couldn't. The cold settled deeper. Daniel pulled the sleeping bag tighter and closed his eyes, Atlas's heartbeat steady against his own. Eleanor Fairchild stood at her kitchen window, looking out at the manicured lawn that stretched to the tree line. The morning sun caught the frost, making everything sparkle. Beautiful, safe, warm. She couldn't stop thinking about the young man in the rain. Her housekeeper, Martha Riley, bustled in with tea. "You should still be resting, Mrs. Fairchild. That fall was yesterday." Eleanor accepted the cup. "And I'm fine, thanks to that veteran, Daniel Bennett." She'd been home for 20 minutes before the full weight of what happened hit her. The fall, the pain in her chest, the rain, and nobody stopping. Cars driving past, people hurrying by like she was invisible. Nobody except him. She'd seen his car, seen the sleeping bag in the back, the condensation on the windows, known what it meant. And still, he'd refused her money. "Martha, I need you to do something for me." Eleanor turned from the window. "That grocery store. Talk to the manager, find out what you can about Daniel Bennett." "Mrs. Fairchild, I know how it sounds. Just humor an old woman." Martha returned 3 hours later with more than Eleanor expected. The store manager knew him. Everyone knew him, in that peculiar way small towns know their invisible people. The veteran who lived in his car, the one with the service dog, polite, quiet. Never asked for handouts. Sometimes people left him money on his windshield. He always gave it away to someone worse off. "There's more," Martha said carefully. "I talked to the mechanic. Says Bennett's been calling about his dog. Needs treatment. Can't afford it." Eleanor's chest tightened. Not her heart this time. Something else. "And the VA clinic?" "He goes, gets his prescriptions, but he doesn't always fill them. Too expensive." Eleanor sat down slowly. This young man living in his car, medication he couldn't afford, a dog that needed treatment, and he'd given away money to help her, refused to take anything in return. She thought of her late husband, Thomas. What would he have said? She knew. Thomas had built Fairchild Manufacturing from nothing, employed half this town at one point. He'd always believed in taking care of people who took care of others. "Martha, get me David Sterling on the phone." David Sterling had been the family attorney for 30 years. Within an hour, he was sitting in her living room, legal pad out. "I want to help this young man," Eleanor said. "Properly, not charity, something lasting." "The foundation?" David suggested. Eleanor paused. The Fairchild Foundation. She and Thomas had set it up years ago, meant to help veterans, but it had mostly funded existing programs, research, facilities, important work, but distant. "No," she said slowly. "This is different. This is personal." She told David everything, the fall, the rain, Daniel's refusal to take money, the sleeping bag visible in his car. "He has a service dog," she added. "Atlas. The dog needs medical care." David made notes. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that Thomas always said the measure of a person isn't what they do when someone's watching. It's what they do when they think nobody will ever know. This young man thought nobody would ever know he helped me. He didn't help me for recognition. He helped because it was right. So you want to offer him what? A job? Eleanor thought about it. The manufacturing plant was mostly automated now, but there were positions, security, maintenance. But was that enough? A job still left him vulnerable. One missed paycheck from being back in that car. I want to offer him stability, she said finally. Real stability. The kind that gives him time to heal, to get on his feet properly. Not just a paycheck that disappears the moment something goes wrong. They talked for 2 hours, David taking notes, asking questions, making suggestions. By the end, they had the outline of something. It's generous, David warned. Some people will question it. Let them. Eleanor's voice was firm. I'm 73 years old. I have more money than I'll ever spend. What's the point of it if I can't use it to help someone who saved my life? He might refuse. He will refuse, the first time. Eleanor smiled. That's why we need to be smart about how we present it. That night, Eleanor drafted a letter, tore it up, drafted another. How do you thank someone for saving your life? How do you offer help to someone whose dignity won't accept charity? Finally, she wrote simply, Mr. Bennett, you saved my life yesterday. You wouldn't take my thanks. Won't you at least let me buy you an Atlas dinner? I'd like to properly express my gratitude. Please meet me at Riverside Diner tomorrow, 6 p.m. No obligations, just a meal and a conversation. Eleanor Fairchild. She included her phone number. Hand-delivered the letter herself to the grocery store parking lot, tucking it under the Explorer's windshield wiper early the next morning before Daniel woke. Standing there in the cold dawn, looking at the fogged windows, the sleeping bag, the dog's shape visible through the glass, Eleanor felt something break open in her chest. This boy had saved her life. Now she was going to save his, not just with money. That was too easy. She was going to give him back something he'd lost in that car, in those months of struggle. She was going to give him back hope. 3 days after the rain, Daniel woke to find an envelope under his windshield wiper. His first thought was a ticket, loitering, vagrancy, something. He unfolded the note, read it twice. Then again, Eleanor Fairchild, the woman from the storm, wanting to buy him dinner. His instinct was to crumple it. He didn't need thanks, didn't need charity dressed up as gratitude. But his stomach clenched at the word dinner, and he knew Atlas could feel him salivating at the thought of real food. The diner. Tomorrow at 6. Daniel looked at the $10.37 in his wallet. He'd need gas to get there. It was 4 miles. The Explorer wasn't going to make it without fuel. And even if he walked, what about Atlas? The diner wouldn't let a dog inside, and he couldn't leave Atlas in the car. He decided not to decide. Let tomorrow come. Maybe he'd feel different. That day was the longest yet. He found $3.50 in change that someone had left on his windshield during the night. Mystery charity. He and Atlas shared a value meal from the drive-thru, eating in the parking lot, watching people come and go with their normal lives. A woman jogged past with her golden retriever, both wearing matching reflective vests. The dog was groomed, healthy, happy. Atlas watched them, tail thumping once against Daniel's leg. I know, boy. You deserve better. In the afternoon, he walked to the library, used the computer to check his bank account. Negative $17 from overdraft fees. He'd missed the minimum payment on his credit card. That was another $30 fee he couldn't pay. The weight of it sat on his chest. Not dramatic, not panic, just heavy. The arithmetic of poverty that never added up, that took $1 and turned it into $3 owed, that punished you for being broke by making you broker. He'd deployed twice to Afghanistan, led men through firefights, diffused situations that should have gotten people killed, come home with commendations and a service record that marked him as reliable, capable, strong. And now, he couldn't afford a can of dog food. Outside the library, he saw Jimmy Walter's truck, caught him before he drove off. That work you mentioned? Jimmy's face creased in what might have been sympathy. Man, I'm sorry. Job fell through. Nothing right now. Daniel nodded, managed something like a smile. No worries. See you around. He walked back to the Explorer. Atlas waited, patient, trusting. The dog didn't know they were down to $7 and change, didn't know dinner was going to be another shared gas station hot dog, Didn't know his limp was getting worse because they couldn't afford treatment. Atlas just knew Daniel was there. And that was enough. That evening, a woman with a small child approached the car. Daniel knew what was coming before she opened her mouth. "Excuse me," she said. "My son wanted to give your dog this." The boy held out a stuffed animal, a small teddy bear worn from love. Daniel's throat closed. That's really kind, but—" "Please," the mother said quietly. Her eyes held understanding. "He insisted." The boy pressed the bear into Daniel's hands. Atlas sniffed it gentle, then took it carefully in his mouth. "Thank you," Daniel managed. They left. The boy looked back twice, waving. Daniel sat in the Explorer, watching Atlas hold the teddy bear like it was precious. The dog's tail wagged slowly. This was why he'd helped that woman in the rain. Because kindness mattered. Because someone had to care. Because if he stopped caring, stopped helping, what was left of him? He thought about the note in his pocket, the dinner invitation, Eleanor Fairchild, who'd tried to give him money and been refused. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to accept a meal. One meal. Let her say thank you properly. Then he'd disappear again, back into the background where he belonged. The next evening, Daniel used $2 of his remaining $5 for gas. Just enough to get to the diner and back. He'd walked Atlas before going, made sure the dog had water in the car, windows cracked. "I'll be quick, boy, promise." The Riverside Diner was warm, bright, almost painful after the cold dim of the Explorer. Eleanor Fairchild sat in a corner booth, and when she saw him, her face transformed with something that looked like relief. "Daniel, thank you for coming. And Atlas?" "In the car, he's fine." "Nonsense, David," she gestured, and a man Daniel hadn't noticed stood from a nearby table. "David, go get Atlas, bring him in. They have a patio area." "Ma'am, I don't think—" "I own the diner," Eleanor said simply. "Atlas is welcome." 10 minutes later, Daniel sat with a water glass in front of him, Atlas at his feet with a bowl of actual dog food, and Eleanor Fairchild watching him with eyes that saw too much. "I can't tell you what you did for me," she started. "You already did. In the parking lot. We're square." "Let me finish." Her voice was gentle but firm. "You saved my life. That's not an exaggeration. My heart medication, I could have died there in that parking lot, and you stopped when nobody else did." Daniel looked at his hands. "Anyone would have. But they didn't. You did. You and Atlas." The waitress brought food, real food, a burger, fries, soup. Daniel's stomach twisted. Eleanor had ordered enough for 3 people. "Please, eat." He did, tried to pace himself, failed. Atlas got a plain hamburger patty, ate it in careful bites like he'd forgotten what real meat tasted like. "Daniel," Eleanor said when he finally slowed down, "I want to help you." There it was. He put down the burger. "I appreciate the meal, Mrs. Fairchild, but I don't need charity." "It's not charity, it's gratitude." She leaned forward. "Do you know what I have? Money? More than I'll ever spend. What I don't have, what I can't buy, is people like you. People who help because it's right, not for recognition, not for reward, because it needs doing." "Mrs. Fairchild." "Eleanor, please." She slid a card across the table. "This is David Sterling. He's my attorney. He has a proposition for you. Not charity, a job, a real one, housing, support for Atlas's medical care. Just hear him out. That's all I ask." Daniel looked at the card, then at her, then at Atlas holding the teddy bear between his paws under the table. "I don't understand." "You will," Eleanor said. "Just promise me you'll listen. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. at this address." She stood, left cash on the table, too much cash. "The rest of that is yours, for gas, for Atlas, for whatever you need. Not charity, Daniel, payment for saving my life. You can't refuse payment for services rendered." She left before he could argue. The cash sat on the table. $40. Daniel sat in the warm diner, Atlas pressed against his leg, and felt something dangerous bloom in his chest. Hope. The address led to an office building Daniel had passed 100 times without noticing. Fairchild Foundation, the brass plaque read. David Sterling met him at the door, professional but warm, and led him to a conference room with leather chairs and a view of downtown Cedar Ridge. Eleanor Fairchild sat at the head of the table. She smiled when Daniel entered, Atlas at his side. "Thank you for coming." Daniel remained standing. "I don't understand what this is about." "Sit, please." When he did, she folded her hands on the table. "David, would you?" The attorney pulled out a folder. "Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Fairchild has asked me to put together a proposal. I want to emphasize, this is a genuine offer, not charity. You'd be working. You'd be earning everything you receive." Daniel's shoulders tightened. "Working doing what?" "The Fairchild Foundation focuses on veteran support programs. What we've lacked is someone with your perspective, someone who understands what veterans face, who's lived it." Eleanor leaned forward. "We want to hire you as our veteran outreach coordinator." The words didn't make sense. "I'm not qualified." "You're the most qualified person I've met," Eleanor interrupted. "You know what veterans need because you've needed it. You understand the gaps in services because you've fallen through them. And you have something we can't train. Genuine compassion." David slid papers across the table. "The position comes with a $45,000 annual salary, health insurance, including mental health support, and housing." Daniel's vision blurred. "Housing?" "The foundation owns several properties. One is a small house on Oak Hill Drive, 2 bedrooms, fenced yard for Atlas. It's yours as part of the compensation package." This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. "Why?" Eleanor's eyes were gentle. "Because 3 nights ago you saved my life, and in doing so, you showed me something I'd been missing. The foundation has been throwing money at programs, at studies, at facilities. But we've been missing the human element, the personal touch. You can help us fix that." "I don't have a degree." "You have a degree in survival, in understanding what veterans face." She paused. "David, show him the rest." David pulled out more papers. "The position includes immediate veterinary care for Atlas, full coverage. Mrs. Fairchild has already contacted the vet. They're expecting you this afternoon if you want. There's also a signing bonus of $5,000. Call it back pay for all the work you've already done surviving with grace." The room was too warm. Daniel couldn't breathe. "I can't. This is too much." "It's not enough," Eleanor said firmly. "You gave me my life back. You asked nothing in return. Let me give you yours back." "But Daniel struggled for words. "I'm living in my car. I'm broke. I'm broken. I have PTSD and nightmares and days where I can barely function." "Which makes you perfect for this position," Eleanor interrupted. "You'll understand the veterans we're trying to help. You'll know what they need because you've been there, still are there. That's not a disqualification, Daniel. That's exactly what we need." Atlas shifted, pressed against Daniel's leg, the grounding pressure, the reminder to breathe. "Why didn't you just tell me? In the parking lot. Why wait?" Eleanor smiled. "Because you would have refused. The man who wouldn't take money in a parking lot wasn't going to accept what he'd see as charity. So I had to make it real. Make it a job. Make it something you could accept without feeling like you were taking a handout." She was right. He would have refused, would have walked away. "The house," he said slowly. "Oak Hill Drive. That's near the good part of town. It's near everything. Library, grocery store, the VA clinic, a park where Atlas can run." Eleanor's voice softened. "It's a home, Daniel. A real home. Yours, for as long as you work with us, which I hope will be a very long time." David pushed a pen toward him. "It's all here. Contract, benefits, everything legal and binding. This isn't a handout. It's a job offer, a good one. The kind anyone would be lucky to have." Daniel picked up the papers with shaking hands. Salary, insurance, housing. It was everything, more than everything. It was the kind of offer people dreamed about. "I need to think." "Of course," Eleanor said. "Take the day." "But Daniel?" She waited until he met her eyes. "You deserve this. Not because you helped me, because you're the kind of person who helps when no one's watching. The world needs more of that. I need more of that in my foundation, and you need a chance to stop just surviving and start living." Daniel stood, legs unsteady. "I don't know what to say." Say you'll think about it. Eleanor stood too. The house is available now. Even if you need time to decide about the job, you can stay there. Consider it a thank you. No strings. I can't. You can and you will. Her voice was firm. Atlas needs proper care. You need a safe place to sleep. Everything else can wait. David has the keys. She pressed them into his hand. The metal was warm from her palm. Eleanor, Mrs. Fairchild. Eleanor, she corrected gently. And you don't need to thank me, Daniel. You already thanked me. 3 nights ago in the rain, when you stopped when nobody else would. This is me returning the favor. Outside in the parking lot, Daniel sat in the Explorer with the keys in his hand and Atlas's head on his knee. The contract sat on the passenger seat, the address for Oak Hill Drive scrawled on a note card. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Eleanor. The vet is expecting Atlas at 2 p.m. Everything is covered. Please don't make me worry about that brave dog suffering because you're too proud to accept help. Daniel read it twice. Then started the Explorer with the last of his gas and drove to the address she'd sent. The house on Oak Hill Drive wasn't large, not like the mansions Daniel had imagined someone like Eleanor Fairchild would own. It was normal-sized, blue siding, white trim, with a covered porch and a maple tree in the front yard going red with autumn. Daniel sat in the Explorer at the curb, engine off, staring. It's too much, he said to Atlas. The dog's tail thumped. Inside, the house was furnished, not fancy but complete. Living room with a couch and chairs, kitchen with dishes in the cabinets, 2 bedrooms, 1 with a bed, 1 empty. Bathroom with towels on the rack. Everything someone would need to actually live. A note sat on the kitchen counter in Eleanor's handwriting. Welcome home. The fridge is stocked. Atlas's new bed is in the 2nd bedroom. Please make yourself comfortable. You've earned this. E. Daniel opened the fridge. Full. Fresh vegetables. Meat. Eggs. Real food. More than he'd seen in months. No. He sat down at the kitchen table and put his head in his hands. Atlas nosed him, whining. I know, boy, I know. At 2 p.m., they went to the vet, the same office that had been calling about Atlas's limp, the bills Daniel couldn't pay. The receptionist's face shifted when she saw them walk in. Mr. Bennett, we've been expecting you. Mrs. Fairchild called. Atlas was taken back immediately. X-rays, full exam, blood work. Daniel sat in the waiting room, hands clenched, waiting for the verdict. The vet, Dr. Jennifer Morrison, came out an hour later. Hip dysplasia. Not severe, but painful. We can manage it with medication and physical therapy. Maybe surgery down the line if needed. Mrs. Fairchild has covered everything, initial treatment, medications, future care. Atlas is going to be fine. Daniel's throat closed. Thank you. He's a good dog, Dr. Morrison smiled. And from what I hear, so are you. They sent him home with medications, instructions, a follow-up appointment already scheduled. No bill, no balance due. That evening, Daniel stood in the kitchen of the house on Oak Hill Drive and tried to convince himself to leave, to refuse this, to go back to the Explorer, return the keys, tell Eleanor Fairchild that he appreciated it, but couldn't accept. Atlas was sleeping on his new bed in the 2nd bedroom, comfortable for the first time in months, properly medicated, safe. Daniel pulled out his phone, dialed the number Eleanor had given him. Daniel? Her voice was warm. How's Atlas? He's good. Dr. Morrison says he'll be fine. Daniel paused. Eleanor, I can't accept this. Silence on the line. Then, why not? Because I didn't help you for this. I didn't help you for anything. You needed help. That's all. I know that. Her voice was gentle. That's exactly why I want to help you. Do you understand? It's not payment, Daniel. It's not a transaction. It's one human being seeing another human being and saying, you're worth helping. But the house, the job, all of it, it's too much. Too much compared to what? Compared to you living in your car? Compared to Atlas suffering because you couldn't afford treatment? Her voice firmed. Daniel, you're a veteran. You served this country. You came home and the system failed you. I have resources. Let me use them to make things right. It's not your responsibility. Maybe not. But it's my choice, just like it was your choice to stop in the rain when everyone else drove past. She paused. You made a choice based on what was right, not what was easy. Now I'm making the same choice. Don't take that from me. Daniel sat down on the couch, his couch, in his house. I don't deserve this. Why? Because you're struggling? Because you have PTSD? Because life knocked you down? Eleanor's voice was fierce now. Listen to me, Daniel Bennett. You are exactly as worthy of help as that elderly woman falling in a parking lot. Exactly as worthy. And if you would stop to help her without question, then let me help you without question. His voice cracked. I'm afraid I'll mess this up, that I'll let you down. You won't. And even if you struggle, even if you have bad days, and you will, that's okay, that's human, that's expected. She softened. The job is real, Daniel. We need you. But even if you don't take the job, the house is yours. The care for Atlas is covered. That's not conditional. That's just human decency. The same kind you showed me. Daniel looked around the room. The warm lights, the clean space, the safety of it. I've been living in my car for 3 months. I know. I have nightmares. Bad ones. Sometimes I can't leave the house. I know. The foundation has resources, therapy, support groups, whatever you need. What if I'm not good at the job? Then we'll train you. And honestly, Daniel, I doubt that's going to be a problem. You know what veterans need because you are one. You know it works because you've lived it. That's more valuable than any degree. He was quiet for a long moment. Atlas padded in from the bedroom, settled at Daniel's feet. The dog looked up at him with those brown eyes, trusting, patient. Okay, Daniel said finally. Okay. I'll try. I'll take the job. I'll stay in the house. I'll try. Eleanor's relief was audible. That's all I ask, just try. But I'm paying rent, some amount. Even if it's small, I need to contribute. We'll figure it out. Maybe take it out of your salary if it makes you feel better. David can set something up. And if I mess up, you won't. But if you do, we'll handle it. Together. That's what the foundation is for, supporting veterans. You're not alone anymore, Daniel. He realized he was crying, silent tears running down his face while Atlas pressed against his leg. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. No, Eleanor said gently. Thank you. For showing me that kindness still exists, for reminding me what matters. Now get some rest. You start Monday if you want, or take longer, whatever you need. After they hung up, Daniel sat on the couch in the warm house with his dog at his feet and let himself feel it. The safety, the hope, the terrifying, wonderful possibility that maybe things were going to be okay. Maybe he was going to be okay. For the first time in months, he slept in a real bed. Atlas slept in the room next door, on his own bed, without pain. And Daniel didn't have nightmares. Monday morning, Daniel reported to the foundation office at 9 a.m. sharp. Military training, 15 minutes early is on time. David Sterling met him at the door with a folder of paperwork and a smile. Welcome aboard. Eleanor's in a meeting, but she wanted me to show you around. The foundation occupied 3 floors of the building, administrative offices, meeting rooms, and on the 3rd floor, a large open space with desks, computers, and a wall covered in photographs of veterans. This is your space, David said. Veteran outreach. Right now it's just you, but Eleanor's hoping to build a team. You'll be the foundation. Daniel looked at his desk. Computer, phone, nameplate that read, Daniel Bennett, Veteran Outreach Coordinator. What exactly do I do? Whatever veterans need. David pulled out a binder. We have programs we fund, but we keep hearing we're missing things. Your job is to find those gaps, talk to veterans, find out what they actually need versus what we think they need. Then help us build programs that work. It was perfect, terrifying, but perfect. The first week, Daniel mostly listened. Eleanor introduced him to the foundation staff, to program directors, to the veterans who used their services. He took notes, asked questions, felt desperately underqualified the entire time. But he noticed things. The support group that met at noon, too early for people working third shift. The job training program that didn't account for PTSD triggers. The housing assistance that required identification homeless veterans often didn't have. He mentioned them, hesitantly, in his first meeting with Eleanor. "That's exactly what I need," she said, writing everything down. "More. What else?" By the end of the first month, Daniel had compiled a list of 23 changes the foundation could make. Small things, mostly. Adjusting meeting times, adding trauma-informed training, creating emergency funds for unexpected expenses. Eleanor implemented 15 immediately. "The rest need board approval," she explained. "But they'll pass. You're doing exactly what I hoped you would." Daniel worked, really worked. For the first time since coming home from deployment, he had a purpose beyond just surviving. He met with veterans at the VA clinic, at shelters, at the library, listened to their stories, learned their needs, and he helped. When a veteran mentioned she needed work clothes for interviews but couldn't afford them, Daniel created an emergency fund. When another said the group therapy timing didn't work, he started an evening session. When a homeless vet told him about sleeping behind the grocery store, Daniel didn't just give him a number to call. He drove him there himself, Atlas in the back seat, and stayed until he was settled. Eleanor noticed. "You're doing more than the job description," she said one afternoon, watching him return from driving a veteran to a housing appointment. "They need help. So we should hire staff." "No." Daniel shook his head. "I mean, yes, eventually. But right now they need someone who gets it, who's been there. Staff can come later." Eleanor studied him. "You're still helping everyone else before yourself." "That's what you do." "Daniel, are you taking care of yourself? Therapy, your medications?" He was. The foundation insurance covered weekly therapy sessions, his prescriptions, even Atlas's ongoing care. Daniel was healthier than he'd been in years. The nightmares were less frequent, the panic attacks manageable. But Eleanor was right. He was still giving more than he kept. "I'm working on it," he said honestly. That evening, Eleanor invited him to dinner. Not at a restaurant, at her house, the real house, the sprawling estate Daniel had imagined people like her lived in. "I want to show you something," she said after the meal. She led him to a room he hadn't seen, lined with photographs. Thomas Fairchild in various stages of life, building the manufacturing plant, shaking hands with workers, cutting ribbons. Always with that same expression, engaged, present, caring. "Thomas built Fairchild Manufacturing on one principle," Eleanor said. "Take care of people, and they'll take care of you. Not because you expect it, but because it's right." She pointed to a photograph of Thomas talking to a worker on the factory floor. He knew everyone's name, their kids' names. He went to their weddings, their funerals. He cared. "He sounds like a good man." He was. And when he died, I thought the foundation should carry on that principle. But I'd lost sight of it. We were helping people, but from a distance, professionally, clinically. She turned to Daniel. "Then you stopped in the rain. And you reminded me what Thomas always knew. Caring has to be personal. It has to be real. It has to cost you something." "I don't think helping should cost. Not money, time, attention, emotional investment." Eleanor smiled. "You do that naturally. Every veteran you help, you give them a piece of yourself. That's what the foundation needed, what I needed to remember." Daniel didn't know what to say. "I want to create something bigger," Eleanor continued. "A program that does what you do, pairs veterans with people who actually understand, creates real relationships, not just services. Will you help me design it?" "I'm not a program designer." "You're exactly what we need. Your experience, your empathy, your understanding." She paused. "I'm not asking you to do it alone. We'll hire staff, experts. But you'll guide it. Make sure it stays personal, stays real." Daniel thought about it. About all the veterans he'd met in the past month, about their needs, their struggles, their quiet dignity in the face of systems that didn't quite work for them. "Okay," he said. "Let's try." They worked through the fall, Daniel and Eleanor and a growing team, building something new. A mentorship program that paired veterans with civilians who'd been trained to really listen. A crisis fund that gave immediate help without paperwork. A housing initiative that didn't just find apartments but created homes. And through it all, Daniel kept doing what he'd always done. When he saw someone who needed help, he helped. When a veteran was struggling, he showed up, not because it was his job, because it was right. Atlas went with him everywhere, healthy now, limping less. The dog had become the Foundation's unofficial mascot, greeting veterans with gentle enthusiasm, providing comfort with his steady presence. "You know what I realized?" Eleanor said one day, watching Daniel work with a particularly difficult case, a veteran who didn't trust anyone, who'd been let down too many times. "You haven't changed at all. Same person who stopped in the rain, still helping, still caring, still refusing to take credit." "I'm just doing the job." "No," Eleanor smiled. "You're doing what you've always done. The job just finally caught up with who you are." She was right. Having stability, having support, having resources, it didn't change Daniel's character. It just gave him better tools to express it. And for the first time since coming home from war, Daniel felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be.